So this is the Jim Crow Museum of Racist Memorabilia Achieving Despite Resistance animation. We worked this semester on the story of Percival Prattis and how he was a voice for civil rights. These animations are a collaborative project by the students and faculty of Kendall College of Art and Design of Ferris State University and the Jim Crow Museum as a part of the EPIC project. And I think my stuff is not connected. I'll do that. Linea.
Yeah, so far we've done other videos like Harlem Hellfighters, Leontine Price, Garrett Morgan, Ruby Foster, and Shirley Chisholm. And we're excited to add Percival Prattis to our selection of videos in the Achieving Despite Resistance section of the Jim Crow Museum virtual tour.
Right, and so with the EPIC project and the ICU, we like to work on innovation. The Achieving Despite Resistance animations are a part of the EPIC project, which is committed to exploring, creating, and testing new concepts for educational and informational media aimed at increasing the engagement, retention, and understanding of knowledge. These animations are built on the ICU production design framework for visual media that supports the facility and facilitates design citizenship. It is an acronym that means inclusive, socio-emotional, entertaining, and universal. I'd like to give a big shout out to Bill Fisher, who is here right now, and his devotion to these ideals and creating this framework. Linea, would you like to introduce Percival Prattis?
Yeah, so this is Percival Prattis, and you will learn a little bit more about him in our video later. Talking a little bit about this semester, I think everyone can attest to who was a part of this project. It was very strenuous, but through hard work and dedication to the project, and to the school, and to the Jim Crow Museum, we were able to pull off this project in the middle of a pandemic. Although sometimes morale was low and communication could be lost, we pulled through and completed a fantastically informational video.
Yes, and I could not be more proud of the students and all that they went through this semester and were able to accomplish. And so we're excited to show you what we learned about Percival Prattis. And so Cherith really came to us with a lot of historical research.
Right, here's a brief overview that's mentioned in the animation. Percival Prattis was a Hampton Institute and Ferris graduate, planned to attend law school, but was drafted into the Army during World War I. He believed he was a warrior for the people and the voice they did not have, pronouncing that the Black press's job was to serve the cause of the African Americans while attacking civil rights injustices. Many people who read his articles were inspired to stand up and join the cause.
Right, so we really collaborated a lot with the Jim Crow Museum, who helped to write the script. Franklin, I know I'm probably putting you on the spot, but would you like to tell a little bit more about who Percival Prattis is and the meaning to the Jim Crow Museum?
Yeah, sure. Well, there's quite a bit written about him in our book Haste to Rise. So he's one of the students who came from Hampton Institute to the Ferris Institute to further his education. And it was through Ferris that he kind of was exposed to different educational opportunities. And I think it was his Ferris education that allowed him to advance in the military. And after the military, he was working in Grand Rapids and kind of got caught on with a guy and started the first African-American press in Grand Rapids called the Michigan State News. So he was a pioneer there, and that started his journalism. So it's important to us because one of the things that we talk about in the museum, of course, we talk about racist memorabilia and the impact that it has had on and still has on people. But we also get a chance to talk about how people rose despite resistance and able to fight back. And Prattis used his forum as a journalist to bring issues of the African American community into the national conversation. And so he had a strong voice and a good voice, and we're really proud of him because of course he was a Ferris grad, and he doesn't get enough credit for his place in the civil rights movement and his place in social justice in the United States. And we're hoping that these stories will help change that.
Mm-hmm. And David Pilgrim, he had a lot of impact on the Double V for Victory campaign. Could you speak a little bit to what that impact had on America?
Yeah, so Franklin's going to be upset because he loves talking about the Double V campaign.
I gave him the opportunity.
I know,
so.
yeah. You didn't give me
He
no
missed
direction.
it.
You didn't give me no direction. You just let it go.
You lost your opportunity, Franklin. You
Sorry.
had an opportunity. And
That
you did not take
curveball,
it.
that curveball didn't curve.
Yeah. So just think, first of all, a lot of quite frankly, all of those African Americans who came from Hampton to Ferris to take college and college prep classes their lives were during the Jim Crow period. All right, so that's all of them. So when we say that any of them were, that dedicated themselves to fighting Jim Crow, that's true of all of them. In this case, you have a person who used his work in newspapers to do that. At the time that he would have been living, and he had experience being in the military, if you were an African American, you thought to yourself, should I go away and fight for this country when I'm experiencing Jim Crow here, when I can't, drink out of water fountains, I can't go to certain schools, I'm limited in the jobs I can get, people insult me, newspapers insult me, I'm basically, treated like a second-class citizen in this country. So the Double V campaign really was an attempt to fight the quote enemy overseas, while at the same time drawing attention to the fact that African Americans were fighting for first-class rights in this country. So it was a two-pronged fight, right? So the V, which was a symbol, sort of the symbol of victory against our enemies abroad, we actually, in the African American community, we needed a double victory. And that second victory was a victory at home. And so, it's kind of hard to imagine these days, but if you think of a campaign that included, beauty pageants and Boy Scout groups and public speaking and just any number of community building exercises that, again, generated interest and encouragement for fighting in the U.S. military, but at the same time, emphasize the need to fight for our rights here in the United States. So Franklin could have done that better.
No, that was good. No, good.
Yeah.
So we do try in our animation to bring attention to that double victory, justice at home and abroad. So let's watch for that when we get into the animation, which I would like Patrick to introduce.
And this is our animation. A big thank you to Franklin and Darnell, and if anyone else is in the chat that I'm not recognizing from the narration and added, yeah. Oh yeah, Gene's in here. Yeah, thanks guys for helping me out with adding voice lines to this.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So without further ado, here is the story of Percival Prattis achieving despite resistance, which will ultimately go in the Jim Crow Museum in the virtual tour.
The Jim Crow Museum of Racist Memorabilia presents Percival Prattis.
As one of the architects of the Double V for Victory campaign, Percival Prattis promoted the fight against fascism abroad.
I'm waiting in line because I was inspired by this here article.
And against racial discrimination at home.
You can't drink from that fountain.
And later as a congressional correspondent. A Hampton Institute and Ferris Institute graduate, Prattis planned to attend law school, but was drafted into the Army during World War I. After helping to start the Michigan State News in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and later gaining experience with the Chicago Defender newspaper, he earned a city editor position with the Associated Negro Press. The press supplied Black newspapers with stories focused on the Black experience.
Pittsburgh Courier, 20 cents.
He was credited with helping heighten Black self-esteem long before the Civil Rights Revolution of the 1960s. Prattis established his own voice with the Pittsburgh Courier in a column called The Horizon. He believed he was a warrior for the people and the voice they did not have, pronouncing that the Black press's job was to serve the cause of African Americans while attacking civil rights injustices.
I'm going to march for voting rights.
Many people who read his articles were inspired to stand up and join the cause.
Let's boycott the buses.
In 1947, when he became the first Black member of the House and Senate press galleries, he gained influence with the political leaders of the era. This was heralded as a victory for all Black Americans.
That's one of our own interviewing the senator.
The Black press has been a crucial part in the fight for African American rights.
The Civil Rights Act is signed.
Percival Prattis took his place in the center of an important line of influential journalistic voices. That includes Frederick Douglass, Ida B. Wells, Oprah Winfrey, and Don Lemon. Prattis used his voice and platform and brought attention to issues like fascism, racism, and the denial of civil rights. How can you bring attention to the injustices of our time? This animation is a collaborative project by the students and faculty of Kendall College of Art and Design of Ferris State University, KCAD, and the Jim Crow Museum as part of the EPIC project.
Hey.
Hey, that was really
Love it.
good.
Yes, yes. Love it.
I like that. That's one of my favorite ones. There was a little dip in it. Was that just in the Wi-Fi?
Well, Bill had also noted that the video is not playing smoothly. It may be that the internet is not connecting to show everybody at the right speed. Was that everybody's experience? I'm sorry about that.
It was desyncing a bit earlier when we were going through it. So I think that's just part of Zoom.
Yeah, don't use words like desyncing. None of us administrators know what that means.
I know what that means.
Okay, then.
Oh, Tara, would you like?
Go Tara.
So you owe me for setting you up for that one, Tara. I'll start by saying I don't know what that means, but I get.
Well, how presidential, I must say.
Really? Okay, we're going there. All right, so I really liked it. I really like this. I love the music. I love the voices. It tells a good, quick story. Has punch to it and ends with the great question, which is, what are you doing now?
Right.
Call to action. Yeah.
What are you doing now to bring attention to injustices of our time? There's so much to do right now. So
And I like the artist. Who's the artist?
We have two artists that are not actually with us right now because they're visiting their grandparents. So they are not with us, but Karen and Lauren.
Yeah.
Big shout out to them.
That's a
And
very
Cherith is here though. Cherith,
let me
give
see.
a big wave.
Let me see. I want to look at this person. Who is it?
Cherith Jackson.
She doesn't have her.
She goes by Cherith on her screen there.
All right. Well, I want to tell her that is a very good representation of Prattis's actual appearance.
And there's also a big shout out to Nate, who is also not here. I would have to say too that not just the art that you're seeing as the final art, but all of the storyboarding really came into play in terms of art and that direction. So big shout out to Linea and Ramar in terms of the storyboarding for that. And sound design really had a big impact, and that is our Patrick.
Yeah. So the one part I would say is when you say that we're going to use it for our the virtual tour, that's true, but it's a little bit estimating the use, because when we move into the new facility, we will have a station where people can watch these in the new facility. So it's not just it's a virtual tour until you and Bill decide to, jack up some money and help us build this new facility. and
No
tear
donation is too small.
no donation is too large either. So you will be able to experience this in the museum. We'll have a station where we show these, and so they'll be shown to people on the site.
Yeah,
That's fantastic. That's great.
We'll probably do that before we move into the new facility too, because once we get the QR codes, we'll have that so people can, even in the current facility, once it opens back up.
That's great. Yeah. Well, we're really glad you liked it. Let's see a little bit about what has happened to the Pittsburgh Courier now. So Cherith, is it around? What's going on with the Pittsburgh Courier and the Voice for the People?
Well, it was bought by John H. Sangstack in 1966. He already owned the Chicago Defender, Michigan Chronicle, Atlanta Tribune, and Atlanta Daily World. When he bought the Pittsburgh Courier, he renamed it to the New Pittsburgh Courier, and it is still running under the same name.
Right. Ramar, let's talk a little bit about the objectives that we had.
So, two of the objectives we had, user testing. There's a brief survey that will help us following each animation to collect data on the user experience or fully sensed persons, and free distribution of educational media. The media will be accessible through the Jim Crow Museum virtual tour.
Etc. apparently, right? So we do have a survey that we would like for you to take, which will help us to assess how we're doing within this idea of accessibility. And Ramar will be putting that survey in the chat. Basically, it's got these questions, and if you could take just a few minutes to fill this out, we'll then take some time and see how we did. So if you can go to your chat and then grab that link. Let me know if anyone has questions. Time for everybody to have taken it. Is that about right, Ramar?
I believe so, yes.
So let's take a look at the results of the survey. Whoops. I think I need to go next here. So Ramar, if you could just go through our results.
So we have about 18 responses. 47% of you have said that you found yourself reading the text most of the time. And 31% of you have said that were reading the text all the time. When reading the text, were you able to read quickly enough to keep up? 38% of you said most of the time, while 50% of you said all of the time.
Snap, snap.
When reading the text, were you able to watch the animated section at the same time? 47% of you said most of the time, and 31% of you said all the time. I think those are pretty good numbers. What was the impact that the sound had on your experience? 50% of you said that it added emotion and helped to tell the story equally, while 35% of you said that it mostly helped you to follow the story. And 15% said it mostly had an emotional impact for you. So we've had you check 2 to 5 emotions that you felt while watching, and the highest one is informed, with 84% of you saying that. And the second one is inspired, with 70% of you contributing that. I think that's really good for animation.
Yeah.
What did Percival Prattis want to go to college for before he was drafted? 60% of you said law. 21% said journalism. The next question was
And it was law, just to give you the right answers here.
Right.
What newspaper did Percival Prattis not work for? 80% of you said the Baltimore Herald.
And that's the correct answer.
The next question was, did Prattis become the first Black member of in 1947? And 85% of you said the House and Senate press galleries. Next one was, who was featured among Percival Prattis as influential journalists? And 90% of you said all of the above. And the last question was, Prattis used his voice and platform and brought attention to issues such as, and 76% of you said all of the above.
Right. I think we brought a lot of attention to the civil rights component. That's probably why that is there. But looking at this, I really think that we have done what we really set out to do. Bill, what do you think about that response rate?
Well, I think that out of the 6 animations, more people got the answers correct on the facts on this one than all the others. So that kudos there.
Yeah,
And,
I see that too.
yeah. Now we could have I don't think we have a smarter group here because it's many of the same people. So I think it must be the animation. I think that the most difficult thing that we have found is getting the timing and the everything, all the package put together in a way that we can read the text and watch the animation at the same time. That has turned out to be far more difficult than we anticipated. And I think that we've done pretty good, but I think this is something that for myself, I'm going to work on this summer to see if we can develop some methods. Sometimes you go into, in this semester and last semester is the first time we've attempted to do that, I believe. So we're learning, and I think that this tells me that I have some work to do because I think that we can provide some examples for the students that might help improve those scores a little bit. But
yeah, and that's really where we're doing our innovation. So it's really helpful for us to see how we did. So thank you for taking that survey. We really appreciate that. I'm going to take us back to here. We are really thankful that Percival Prattis was a voice for us, a voice for the United States, but also a voice for us. We'd like to talk a little bit about our process for the project. We did universal design. That was a big part of what we wanted to do. And the difference between accessible design and universal design is that accessible design asks only that sight and hearing impaired persons can access the information. It does not require that the experience to be of equal quality, and it can be a separate experience. It can be separate and unequal. Universal design aims to create an experience for persons of all sensory abilities to fully participate in the experience together in the same place, at the same time, on the same channel with the same quality. So that's really what we're aiming at. Ramar.
So our team was split up to integrate the universal design and visual hierarchy into our mission, with the art team focusing on assets for the animators. Karen did character art, Cherith did the group shots and text, Lauren did the environments and characters, with Nate doing environments and props.
And with the innovation that we incorporated into the script, it was a socio-emotional script. So we set the expectations and provide an intense emotional experience in the intro. The primal brain activation will influence the audience's perception of the rest of the video. We told a multimedia story. This knowledgeable brain activation will inject the information into long-term memory through image, sound, and motion association. We offered a value proposition. This activates the viewer's logical brain by providing them a choice. connecting it with the viewer. This activates the viewer's tribal brain by connecting these past achievers with the society and culture we live in today. Ramar.
We collaborated with the Jim Crow Museum, who wrote the script that we then adjusted to fit the socio-emotional framework and for visual narrative animation. Important sections that shaped his character and his impact on history were highlighted. So the team designed the script to apply visual narrative format to it. Further development was had when the team split for creating the visual soundscape and the sketchboards of the script.
And Patrick for sound.
Yeah, so when adding the sound to this, I was really trying to like enhance the animation, but also you have to keep in like the back of your head, how is this going to get the point across to someone who can't see what's actually on the screen? So you have to have the sound fill out that environment for them too. And then also finding music that, you know, isn't too distracting, but also fits with like the scene or the time period or something like that. All types of stuff that we have to consider when we're working on that.
Right. So Linea was our team lead. Thank you, Linea, for all the help that you gave everybody and support for the students. Go ahead.
Well, so if you have any questions to ask, you can go ahead and put them in the chat and I'll read them, or you can raise your hand in Zoom, or if you just want to go ahead and ask, I can try and answer as many, or I'll direct them to anybody else on the team that I think will answer it better than me.
I kind of have a question. How do I get all of these? How can I like grab all of these as finished animations and watch them all back to back?
Sure, you could go to the Jim Crow Museum and watch the virtual tour, set up a time to do the virtual tour with them, right, guys?
But we also have them on the Jim Crow Museum YouTube page, and so they're all right there. I can actually send you that link. Put that in the chat.
Fantastic. Yeah, I love them. I can't wait for more of these, man. These are just great. It's great. I mean, I love history, and just they're so informative and they're so inspiring. You know, all of us, you know, and I've been a student too, are kind of fighting our own battles. And you know, I always say as a student, you're never going to be more broke or more overworked. You know, it's a really hard place to be, and to be working on these where you see, you know, people have, you know, even greater obstacles, you know, look at what Jackie Robinson went through. That's another one you could do. You know, people were spitting on him and swearing at him, and just imagine you were going to work. That was his work. Imagine you're going to work and people are giving you death threats, and on top of that. So it's so inspiring, you know, as students, and, you know, as we're kind of struggling through finding ourselves in our way in life, to see these other people who had obstacles maybe 5 or 10 times what we're enduring, and they won. And they stuck it out. And I just find it incredibly inspiring. And I don't know, it's just good, feel good stuff. Really makes me feel better about everything we do. You know, we're helping make the world, I feel, a better place and a more informed place.
Right, we've done 6 achievers, 35 KCAD students, many of them that created the achievers that I showed you here are with us today. There's 6 Jim Crow Museum staff, 3 KCAD professors, and 7 additional voices. So a big shout out to those who did our voice acting in the crowd.
I'd like to say thank you for Tony Reddick, who stepped in. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I'd just like to give a personal congratulations to all the students and to Susan and Mike. I think really polished, you know, really slick, and just really well done. So congrats.
Thank you.
Agreed.
So we do
Beautiful.
have one person raising their hand, and I'd like to bring attention to Tara McCracken, KCAD president.
Thank you, Susan, and thanks for including me in this. They are very impressive. I'm KCAD proud of each and every one of you who have worked on this. But my question is to the team of students that worked on this. What was the highlight of this process? I know the highlight is the product, but in the process, what was the highlight for you?
Personally for me, the highlight definitely was getting to know Prattis a little bit more. I had no idea who he was. I wasn't taught of him as an individual in history when I was growing up, and finally being, being taught a lot more of what actually happened back then and what was happening to people back then, and certain individuals who are overcoming things despite the odds. It's a lot more inspiring to learn about this type of stuff and getting to work on projects like these, part of the school and outside of the school, so people can see. This was a good experience, and I think learning a little bit more about history, especially in this country, was probably one of my favorite parts.
Call that transformative learning. Any other students want to share with me?
My highlight for this project was more on learning teamwork with the rest of my teammates, especially with a teleoperated focus like this project had due to the pandemic that we had to work through with this. I found that gave me a lot of experience from this project.
Yeah, we like to prepare you for the world of work.
Yeah, this team really stepped beyond. It was really cool to see how you collaborated even outside of class to make this all function. So that was fantastic. Franklin Hughes from the Jim Crow Museum, I'd like to acknowledge your question.
Yeah, I just want to again say thank you to all you guys that have been involved in this. These are really, really good, and we really appreciate them and enjoy them. And I just want to give the students and Susan and Bill, you guys also credit, because you turned a journalist's story into something interesting, which is really, really difficult. And this was one of the ones that when we first suggested it, I was thinking to myself, I was like, well, how could this be something that people would watch? But it is, and it is interesting, and it is educational, and it's not, so you just did a really good job. And so you drew people in with the animation and the sound, and it's a good thing for a journalist, and it's exciting, and it has action and all the things that you need for a good animation. So thank you again, and you guys just did a great job.
Yeah, that's a big shout out to the storyboarders and the direction that you wanted to put into it. Ramar and Linea, you really had a big impact to make sure that we had the action. That wasn't just writing and papers.
There's a lot more work than that, yes.
So the teams that created the animations previously, all of the other animations, how do you think that Percival Prattis fits in with the group? My Pro Studio 2 students who created these beautiful animations.
Yeah, I think you guys did a really, really good job. I know when all of us worked on all of our animations, it was a new experience to try to collaborate and get this done with, especially doing 5 of these with tiny little groups. But the fact that you guys all came together to make this fantastic video that definitely stands out among the rest is really impressive.
Thank you, Tyler. Tara, you have another thought that you're raising your hand? You just have your hand up is all. I'm going to put you on the spot again. And
well, I think that Franklin brought up something interesting, which is, how do we take something that we might think could be a little bit boring to, to tackle and make it exciting. And you know, when we work in places like Grand Rapids, for instance, we're creating media for companies that make things like plastic sheets or, you know, doorknobs or whatever. You know, this is often our challenge, is how to make things that you know, aren't necessarily that exciting all within themselves, but to find that way, find that path forward. So way to go. I think you did have a little extra challenge on this one. It's not like you got Rube Foster and a bunch of baseball players flying around, you know, doing athletic stuff, right? So yeah, way to go there.
Well, we did happen to have the White House and the House of Representatives and our nation's background. So, well, thank you everyone for participating and helping us. Sure. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your question, Elise.
So I was gonna ask, have you started to think about who's next? Like who are you thinking might come next?
Yes, more.
Well, Franklin and I have started a little bit of conversation, and we will yet determine what we're going to do. I will personally be on sabbatical next semester, so this will be up to Brad and Mike Dollar, who will continue on with the Professional Studio 1 and 2 class to continue and to figure out what we're going to do. We've thought a little bit about doing the Green Book. We don't know if that's what we're going to do yet, and how to collaborate. So we're just wanting to right now celebrate Percival Prattis and all of his accomplishments before we move on.
I want to extend out my hands and say, when it comes to the next round of research, the library would love to be supportive and participate if we can, like early.
Thank you, Elise. Yeah. Yeah, we really
Elise
appreciate
also
you.
contributes to our voiceover work for our studio. So again, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. But yeah, let me actually do my job stuff.
We have some other things for you to do. You always do great with that. Thank you.
I have been so honored to work with the Jim Crow Museum on this project, and to bring light to these stories is just been an absolute pleasure, and I'm so excited to learn about their stories. And thank you for being a part of this with us.